Demonstrations turned violent in Los Angeles on the West Coast, where police fired rubber bullets at the crowds. Adversely, though, on the East Coast, New York, several protesters were arrested as thousands blocked streets in the city center.
Relentless Radio.
The still anonymous jurors called their experience highly emotional and physically draining. They also distanced themselves from this woman.
I think Trayvon got mad and attacked him.
Protests against Zimmerman's acquittal continue. Erupting from Los Angeles to Houston overnight.
If you with Trayvon, come get with us.
From Attorney General Eric Holder.
Trayvon's death last spring caused me to sit down to have a conversation with my own 15-year-old son.
To Hillary Clinton.
No mother, no father should ever have to fear for their child walking down a street in the United States of America.
Relentless Radio.
Well, I rhyme time to time, but more important than that, I got things on my mind, and as a matter of fact, I'm rhyming and I'm climbing, making my dreams come true. Who can say the same? Yo, what about you? I'm rhyming to the beat because I got something to say. I'm not rhyming to the rhythm just to make bodies sway. I'm rhyming for a reason while the world's going round. I'm not rhyming for a season. That's not how I get down. I'm rhyming and I'm teaching, and yes, I'm getting paid. I'm like the other side of leather, but they just call it suede. Think about your life and how you get what you desire. You don't have to work a job that you don't like and retire. Dedicate yourself to something that you enjoy. Don't run around pretending just to be with the boys. I'm rhyming in your ear because you don't have a clue. I'm rhyming in your ear, and yes, I'm talking to you. Think about the world and how you want it to be, because you can live your dreams, yeah, just like me.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Relentless Radio. Today, we're joined by the legendary authors, the gods and the goddesses of the word, and they're here tonight to speak about the aftermath of the Trayvon Martin decision. OMAR TYREE, KAMRYN Adams, Andrew Morrison, RENEE MCRAE. How do we move forward? How do we prevent things like this from happening again? How do we turn this into a productive conversation? This is
Relentless Radio.
Protesters took to the streets of Los Angeles again on Monday, demonstrating against the acquittal of George Zimmerman by a court in Sanford, Florida. Police stood ready with batons to keep the crowd under control. Several protesters were arrested the night before, and they refused to disperse.
This verdict makes it very clear and gives a green light to anyone that wants to shoot and kill a youth of color. You know what? And you can get off and walk and go on and live your life. And it's okay.
I do have a daughter, and it's terrifying that I now have to go and have this conversation with her about being profiled and keeping her safe and helping her understand what she has to do to keep herself safe against other people and the police department.
A mother and father who lost a son. At the end of the day, for Sabrina Fulton and Tracy Martin, the parents of Trayvon Martin, it is just that simple and just that sad.
So being at peace in the eye of the hurricane or the eye of the storm brings peace to your reality and your creation. And being in peace in this moment, the eternal now, will have more of a positive impact upon the world than any other single thing done on this physical plane. So for me, I had to be still and become a conduit of love to and for the world, and give rise to letting go and allowing God. And so that's where I was, and that's what I wrote. And it was a process that I went through as I was writing it, and went back and said, I found myself struggling, because by the end of the post, I had come to a place of understanding that allowed me to be in this moment now at peace. Doesn't mean we don't do anything. Doesn't mean we don't make change or affect change or even have something to say. It just means that we can be at peace and be more effective than if we're starting off and being in frustration, aggravation, agitation, and all of that.
I didn't watch any of the case because I don't watch reality and dramatic TV at all. I just think it diminishes the intelligence of people so much in America, and people are really addicted to these shows. And so most of what I know about the case, I read. I read all the time. And so I was reading all the responses, and I was reading the defense and prosecution. And the reality is, during this entire case, I just felt that, his law team, and that's Trayvon Martin, the law team just seemed weak. They didn't put all of their information together, and then the witnesses did not seem incredibly strong. And then some of the peripheral people did not seem incredibly strong either. And so when I looked at the case, it just seemed like they were trying to build the case, and all that Zimmerman's team had to do was just reflect or deflect a lot of the information that was given from the African-American law team, and I just didn't feel that they were strong enough. And what it is direct reflection on money again. The Zimmerman team had a more qualified money team that understood exactly what they were dealing with, and then the African-American team of Trayvon, whether he had white lawyers or not, that team was more all over the place, and it wasn't cohesive. And everything I read was like, wow, are they really going to get this guy? Or, they had a lot of holes in the case, and so I'm not surprised at all. And we have to remember that, O.J. Simpson got off. He had an excellent law group, and white people lost their minds when that happened. But it's just the American system, and a lot of African Americans end up going to jail because their law teams are weak versus a lot of the white law teams that are much stronger, typically because of the economics. And so we're just looking at more than race here. We're still looking at the disparity of economics and the disparity of professionalism in the courtroom. It happens every day in Detroit, in Philadelphia, in Atlanta, in Washington, D.C., in Chicago, all these places where you have a lawyer that's not incredibly qualified, who's going to represent an African-American client, up against a white client who has more money for a more qualified lawyer. They know the laws more, they know where the holes are, and they just annihilate you in court. And so this happens every single day.
I feel like the same way people rallied behind Zimmerman to build his legal fund, that's something we need to do. But I also want to see the federal government file charges, civil rights charges against George Zimmerman, because that is a different burden of proof. I feel like just in the O.J. trial, it's the same thing. There are other ways to get at this. To let it go right now would not be the best thing, not only for the family, but for the country. And as far as finances, we need to mobilize ourselves and do something to build up that fund, because other groups do it all the time.
The young girl that, Trayvon called up on the phone, I mean, they ripped her to pieces. There was no way you would have to spend time with her to prepare her for that type of trial, and the magnitude and the attitude that she would have to have on that type of trial, particularly when you have a jury that's mostly affluent white people. Oh, they're going to rip you to pieces. And so you have to basically prepare your jury. And we've seen this on movies countlessly, where the people who have capital, they will prepare everything. They will make sure that nobody walks out there and throws any surprises in the courtroom. And so the team that Trayvon had, a whole lot of holes were loose in that thing, and it was too late to make amends. This trial was very quick. Boom, boom, bang, and it's over. So you didn't have time to do any of that. That's just the way of the young. I have two sons in my household, and, I try to teach them how to be confident in intellectual attributes and confident and progressive attributes. And it just seems that African-American men are a lot more confident at negative attributes. But when it becomes positive attributes, they become passive. They become docile. But they will pull their pants down and walk around like they're the hardest dudes on the planet. In fact, I'm going to bring this up to date. I just saw a movie yesterday. It's called The Grown-Ups, where, of course, Sandler, has all of the young guys in there. They playing old guys now. And the black character, which is Chris Rock, he had a teenage son in the movie, and the teenage son was with a white guy that's Sandler's son, and they went to a party in which they were drinking. And the black son came up with this idea. He said, well, we're not going to drink. We're going to pull out the drinks and act like we're drunk. And so they had this whole thing of acting drunk and acting over the top, even though they didn't drink the beer. And then later on in the same film, the black guy had a driver's license, one of those driver camp things, and then college students saw him in the car, and then he had to act like he was hard and drunk again. And then the guy that was his teacher, his driving teacher, he said, "You're drunk and driving the car, I'm going to subtract 5 points." And it's supposed to be comedy, but that's what black kids are doing all the time, acting like they're hard, and then having to be penalized for it. Knowing good and well they're not hard. And then they get in some kind of trouble, and their parents are sitting in there trying to explain, "My son is a good student, my son is this, my son is that." Yeah, but your son is showing in every attempt that he can that he's harder than the hardest guy, and he's going to do tattoos, and he's going to smoke. And this is stuff that the parents may not see, but these kids go to school and do that every day. And it's ridiculous. And then they have to defend against it when they get into a situation like Trayvon was in.
Well, my philosophy on almost everything that happens in this country is that it is a black and white issue. When we talk about racism, we're really talking about blacks and whites. Just like when we're talking about immigration, we're not talking about Europeans coming here. So yeah, it does become a black and white issue because a lot of what Omar just said. So Trayvon is walking. He's a young black male, and that conjures up a lot of emotion in people, as it did Zimmerman. I have 2 sons and 3 younger brothers. And, on occasion, they may decide that they want to wear a hoodie or they want to look a certain way. And to Omar's point, I think that culturally, we do rock this kind of hard lifestyle. But I will say this with regards to that, is there's a portion of that is our flavor, not the going out and getting into trouble, but the look. I know my kids, private school educated suburban boys who, throw on a jersey, and it's that whole thing that has become a part of what our kids do. So it's twofold in that, we've kind of failed our kids in doing what Omar just said, which is, this is who I want you to be. This is cool for you to be this person. It's good for you to be this person. And unfortunately, what we know now is it's also safer for them to be that person. So it always, in this country, comes down to race, because this is a country built upon a racial divide. People say, is there going to be a post-racial America? Well, no, because there wasn't a pre-racial America. From the beginning of this country, it's always been about race. And not just race, but about those of African descent and those of European descent. Black people and white people. That's the heated debate.
Relentless Radio.
Omar TYREE, KAMRYN Adams, Andrew Morrison, RENEE MCRAE.
I just look at people as people. And I thought for sure that the jury looked at Trayvon as an average teenager that was minding his own business, that wasn't committing any crime, that was coming home from the store and were feet away from where he was actually going. And I just believe that they realized that. But when I heard the verdict, I kind of understand the disconnect, and that maybe they didn't see Trayvon as their son. They didn't see Trayvon as a teenager. They didn't see Trayvon as just a human being that was minding his own business.
I like anyone else, I'm a microcosm of the macro, just like everyone else on the call and just like everyone else in our society. We're all products of the society, and we're products of what we've been programmed to be by well-meaning or not well-meaning people in our lives, whether they be parents or whether they be teachers or whether it's the media or whatever, the movies, whatever, filmmakers, whatever. We are molded by that. And unfortunately, we have not been taught how to find out who we are, which is one of the reasons why I am in school every day working with children on, youth development, whether they be leadership skills, peer pressure, but most importantly, self-esteem. And additionally, I work with their parents who are oftentimes younger than my 2 daughters. and my daughters don't even have kids yet. And so I'm working with the parents, and I'm doing workshops like Fulfill Your Destiny and getting them to begin to understand how they can live the life that they want to. But I find that even with the teachers, you know, we are a people who have not figured out how to look inside and recognize who we are, what we want, and then dedicate ourselves to a direction that makes sense and put us in alignment with the finding that we have, to align our lives with the finding of who it is that we are at our core. And that's where I think that if we could do that, if we could become more self-aware, more self-understanding, and grow, then, you know, we would live, but we would be an example. We would be a demonstration. We could affect change without having to argue a point and go back and forth, because everybody's trying to prove their point. Everybody needs to be right. And the kids are the same way. And it's not just the boys. We're talking about boys because this is Trayvon Martin, but I am in the schools every day, and it is the girls even more so, okay, if you're really talking about violence, and you're really talking about who's putting up a front, and if you're talking about cruel behavior towards each other based on the fact that you don't know who you are, and you don't, I mean, here we are with the fake nails, the fake hair, the fake eyes, the fake eyelashes. And, I mean, we are trying to prove a point, even at these young ages. I mean, you have little third graders coming in with extensions and weaves in their hair. They do not know their own beauty or their self-worth, and no one is teaching it to them. The teachers can't, and the mothers and fathers are not. And maybe for their own reasons or not. And this is not necessarily like, okay, we're talking about OMAR here, we're talking about KAMRYN here, and you're talking about kids that are private schools and this and that, but for the majority of the African-American students that I run into every day, whether I'm in Richmond, Virginia, or whether I'm in Baltimore, Maryland, or whether I'm in Brooklyn, I am finding that these kids are in segregated schools, and they live across the street from the school in the projects, and all the other kids go to charter schools or private schools.
I have great magnetism and attract some of the greatest minds in the streets and in the boardrooms. I have on the line RALL Elder. He's also, I published a book for him.
The children's book is what I don't want to be. I mean, thank you, Relentless. KAMRYN and OMAR, I'm a big fan, OMAR. Wow, I'm humbled to be in the presence of you and Relentless and KAMRYN. Okay, briefly, the bigger picture here is the fact that George Zimmerman, with the murder of Trayvon Martin, and Trayvon Martin with his actions leading up to his murder, is not the bigger picture. The bigger picture is that George and Trayvon set into motion the ability for the beast to feed itself. And what I mean is the biggest business in the world is crime. The second biggest business in the world is the enforcement of law and the punishment of crime. So once George Zimmerman killed Trayvon, it set the beast up to feed itself. And what I mean is that it's obvious that the prosecution designed its case so that it would lose. And it's obvious that George Zimmerman could afford the best attorneys. But the beast, what they're really doing is they want us as a people to be angry. It's a hot summer, and they want us as a people to be angry. They want to fuel the fire of racism so that they can lock more people up, so that the beast can feed itself. And this is all that it's about, is putting people in a position to where they would act on energy, in this case negative energy, which would allow the system to lock them up. Therefore, the beast feeds itself. They're building jail cells based on third grade reading scores, the third grade aptitude test. And the children who don't pass those aptitude tests, they start building jail cells based on the amount of children who don't pass a third grade aptitude test. And this is just another example of the beast creating a situation where it can feed off of the people. I guarantee you that in the next week, more people in Florida will be locked up because of racial hostility than they have been in the last 6 months. Peace and blessings, Relentless, OMAR, KAMRYN, love and respect to all of you. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Yeah, that was beautiful. Brother, you wear a suit as a business person, right? You wear suits and ties, you know, is that...
Oh, yeah. Well, brother, no, I don't wear suits and ties. I'm out here dealing with the youth every day. I'm a motivational speaker. I have a program called Who's Responsible. It deals with brothers out in the street making responsible choices.
Well, that's fine, but I think I saw...
Don't wear a suit and tie.
Okay.
I come from nothing, brother. I grew up in the projects around dope fiends, pimps, prostitutes, drug dealers, murderers, and killers. I don't wear a suit and tie every day.
Okay. But you have never worn a suit or anything? You don't wear any suits, you wear regular casual clothes? I do have suits that I wear to funerals, but I wear casual clothes, brother. I'm just a regular dude. Okay. Yeah, because one of the things that I wanted to say is that we seem to have a rejection of, forward progress or the correction of certain negative attitudes that we display. I've never been into the whole tattoo thing, but it seems as if we're attracted to things that are going to sink us further into the stereotypical lane. The whole pants hanging down thing. When I came up, we were wearing snakeskin belts and name belts. We were proud to have belts on. And so it just seems that the kids of this era are putting themselves in the arena where they strengthen the stereotype. Get out of there like, wow, you already know that we already being looked at a certain way. And then even the hairstyle, where instead of having a regular tapered haircut that we had in Philadelphia 20 years ago, now the guys want the long braids. They want and then one person said, well, that's an African, situation. I said, yeah, but at the same time, all of that now is leading itself toward a culture where you're just magnifying the separation and rejection of the whole progressive look. What's wrong with a suit? What's wrong with a haircut? What's wrong with no tattoos? So we're putting ourselves in a situation where now we have to defend ourselves even more so when we know that we're already in under the light in a negative way. So it's just a hard battle.
It goes back to the late to mid-'80s. We were involved with rap music back in the mid-'80s, and you had KRS-One, and he came up with the term edutainment. You had Public Enemy. You had people who were doing positive things in music, and the powers that be realized that positive entertainment was educating undereducated people. So they decided to use rap music in particularly to create a mindset in individuals, and therefore the influx of gangster rap. And they began to train and teach children how to become the image that they wanted them to portray. And once they got us to accept that title, and once they got us to portray that image, then it made it easy for them to do what they're doing to us now, because our youth has accepted that. Now, I grew up in the 60s and the 70s. And like you, I grew up when it was all right to wear Swedish knits and alpaca sweaters and have a tight haircut. You understand? And look decent and dress well. And we were educated by men and women of our own culture who raised us to be men and women. But our children, unfortunately, have been educated by the media, by rap music, by TV, radio, magazines. You understand? I have a friend of mine, he reads 17 magazines, and his wife says, why do you read 17 magazines? And he says, because my daughter reads it. And there's somebody in there telling my daughter that you can still give a man head and be a virgin, so I want to be able to combat that. You understand? And so our children have so much access to so much misinformation that's educating them in a manner that would lead them to self-destruction.
OMAR TYREE, KAMRYN Adams, Andrew Morrison, RENEE MCRAE.
Relentless Radio.
He said that when the jury was selected, he felt that the trial was over then because of the makeup of the jury. No African Americans on the jury. There have been studies by economists in Florida, looked at studies, one study from 2000 to 2010, that all-white juries convict black defendants 16% more often than a white defendant. And if there's just one African American on that jury, it's about equal then.
Hello, everyone, and I just want to commend you, Relentless, for creating this space, space for grace, space for people to kind of come together and really support each other and develop an action plan. So congrats to the great work that you're doing. First of all, I would like to honor everyone's emotions. Whatever emotion you're feeling right now is the right emotion, and let's make sure no one denies that from you. This is extremely painful for me. You know, I grew up in the 70s. I grew up in Brooklyn. I grew up in a project, single parent, growing up in a pull-out bed in a living room. So I know pain, and I know violence, especially violence at the hands of the police. And I know what young black men especially go through on a daily basis. I've almost been shot several times by cops, minding my business. And so this trauma has a lasting impact on you, and I want to create a healing space for any other brothers who you may be in your 30s, your 40s, you're looking fine, you're doing well, but something happened to you as a teenager that you still haven't discussed. You are almost a Trayvon Martin some 10, 20 years ago, and even though you're a grown man right now, there's a pain that hasn't been properly healed. So your response to this is actually based upon your earlier conditioning. So I tell people that the child is the parent of the adult. That your childhood gives rise to the person you are today. So, everyone is responding in their own way, and based upon my pain, my way to respond is actually to double up on my efforts. And so I'm already on the field, just like many brothers and sisters who are on this call right now. And what we need to begin to do is to listen carefully. There's a very powerful German concept called Zeitgeist. And what Zeitgeist is, it's the spirit of the ages. And so, Brother Trayvon, to me, is a warrior, and he's a soldier who died on the battlefield. And so now it's our job to pick up his armor. It's our job to pick up his flag and advance the position. And so, as Relentless mentioned, I go past the pain. I go now to the promise. And the promise is to fulfill our divine commitment to become the men and the women that we're designed to be. So what we're experiencing right now was put into the Constitution. So I don't know why people are surprised. It's what the first law of motion says, that a body in motion stays in motion. A body at rest stays at rest. So something was put in motion in the framing of the Constitution of this country that has put us in this position. And what was put in motion is we were declared to be 3/5. Okay, so everything you see that's occurring right now is based upon what was put in motion some 200 odd years ago. And so we need to begin to correct that. But here's the key, I'm saying, is to honor our emotions, anger, betrayal, whatever those emotions are, honor them, but now wrap them with love. Wrap them with love and begin to take action. Action on a daily basis. And I'd like to challenge everybody to say, take action based upon what you are called to do. So this verdict should be a divine reminder of your calling. Everyone on this call right now, I know for a fact you have a divine anointment, you have a divine calling, and your job is to remember the calling, not to figure it out. And so allow this tragedy to become a reminder to you. What do you really search in your heart? And you know it. Because the one way to unlock it is for you to ask yourself, who talked you out of it? So take this activism, take this moment, rededicate your life. Put a picture. So I can't go online. I can't wake up in the morning without looking at a picture of Trayvon. And that causes me to redouble my efforts. So now, let's go on a practical level. And this is real talk. I don't know who's listening to this program. I don't know who will listen to the program in the future, but let me tell you how I'm serving and also, being able to take care of your family. So I want to create a space for everyone to realize that you can help our youth and also put some money in your pocket. See, we have this false dichotomy around capitalism and no, Andrew, you're trying to make some money off our surfing. Let's stop that. Other people are coming in, creating charter schools, doing extremely well, but understanding this system. And I want to honor the brother who spoke about feeding the beast. I want to honor that brother because that was a very insightful commentary. But let me tell you the flip side of what's happening. And some of you, I will open a debate for this, but let me just tell you what I'm seeing. That there's going to be a backlash, and this backlash is going to create an opportunity for more funding. It's going to create an opportunity for more service. It's going to create an opportunity for us to do what we were sent to do. I'm right now working on after-school programs. I'm working on in-school programs. I'm doing work in Native American community, and I'm saying to everybody on the call, and I told Relentless earlier, Relentless knows when I put something out there in the universe, I'm not just saying something, I'm saying, okay, I'm doing it, let's see who's about to jump on board. Everybody on this call right now, you have to have a high school program. If you're not involved in high school in some level, then get off the call. Then your job is a job of a distractor because you're not really solving the problem. So we're talking about work with our youth, what we need to do. But everybody on this call needs to be involved in an inner city high school. And here's how you're going to do it. You're going to do it by focusing on your calling, focusing on your gifts. All right? And McDonald's may say supersize your meal. Well, I'm going to say high school size your gift. Whatever you've been doing for at least 3 years, I guarantee you that speaks to an expertise that there's a local high school that wants that expertise. And don't say that there's no money. There is so much money available for you to go into a high school and begin to share your gifts and talents with others. So here's what I'm prepared to do. Anybody who's serious about going into high schools, about helping, earlier I spoke to Relentless about, listen, Relentless, I've been admiring you from a distance. I've been admiring Brother OMAR as well. I'm saying to everybody right now on the call that what we need to do is to help our young people tell their story. Relentless, one of his key elements of healing, Relentless can tell his own story, is because he was able to tell his story. So the challenge I would like to throw down right now is that every single inner city high school needs to have a program, a high school program that helps our children self-publish their story, helps them to process their pain. They're going through stressors right now that we could never even imagine some 20 years ago. And if we don't help them deal with it, they will become the dysfunctional adults tomorrow. And so I'm on the battlefield, I'm working, and who wants to sign up with me? That's the main challenge. You could, visit me at smallbusinesscamp.com. That's smallbusinesscamp.com. But I'm saying to everyone that take your emotions, let's wrap this with love, and let's begin to go to work. This is a call for work, more so than anything else.
Absolutely, I totally agree with Andrew, and but I would even say that I find that kids are in the lower grades as well need just as much of the information that he's proposing that we go out and disseminate, because we have kids. I mean, it's unbelievable what our kids are going through. I do publish books with the children because I am a poet at heart. That's my first and foremost vocation. And so when I'm in the schools, I'm working with them on doing self-discovery, self-understanding, self-esteem, all of that through poetry. And they're writing their story. They cannot learn until they let go of the burdens that they're carrying. They cannot focus. And these kids write their story. I mean, I've had girls writing stories about their mother's boyfriends sexually molesting them and how they told the mother, and the mother said, oh, hell, and then the guy went to jail, and then this and that, and the whole thing rhymes. But the story no one knew. I mean, here the teachers didn't know, the principal didn't know, and this is a school where this kid has been in the school for 6 years already, and everyone knows the mother, the father, the this one, the that one, and the other. And the same thing with the little boy in Richmond. He had he's a class clown, and everybody knows he's a class clown. And he writes a poem. When I give him a topic like, so you think you sometimes I wonder. So he's writing the poem, sometimes I wonder if I'm going to achieve my dreams. Sometimes I wonder life's not what it seems. Sometimes I wonder blah, 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 blah. And then the kids are like, oh, my God, this is the first time he's ever been serious. Like, he's never been serious, Renee, blah, 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 blah. And so, like, okay, so the next poem he writes, gave them, you know, you think you know me. He's like, you think you know John, but you don't. And he goes on and does his whole story about he had a brother and how they did everything together. And then one day, 2 shots from a gun from a man named Hay took his brother's life away. And then John made everything a game to mask and hide his pain. And so the whole story came out. The teacher's mouth dropped open. They're having meetings in the morning about this kid, getting him counseling and stuff like that now, because this apparently happened before he came into the school 3 years ago, and he's been in the school 3 years and they didn't know that this is what's the story. I mean, they just figured he's a class clown. So our kids are carrying stories. I've had kids come into the classroom and someone was murdered in their home the night before, and the parents just said, you go to school. Like, they got enough to deal with at home to have this kid in the house too. So they send the kid to school. What is the kid going to do in the school, in the classroom, when someone just died in their home the night before? And so it's just a thing. One teacher said, oh, she's going to be here. I said, no, Miss So-and-so, she may not be here at the end of the year. I said, well, you do know her mother died. And she said, what? No, I didn't know that. I said, yeah, she's living with her aunt. And her aunt's moving and wants her to go stay with her cousin who's across town, so she won't be in the school any longer. Now, how come I found out this in one day, and this teacher has had her since September, and here I'm in there in December, and you don't know this? So it's amazing what's going on in school systems, and we need to help our children at every grade level. That wherever you can fit in, get in.
Amen, amen, Renee, and let's make it happen, because all of us are doing great work that needs to be broadcast all around the world. So I'm committed. Let's talk about how we can take the work that you've been doing in the schools already, and let's begin to start publishing. Let's begin to start telling our story. Let's get every student, whether it's middle school, high school, even elementary school, telling their story, because that's the way to discovering your own authentic voice.
Well, I'll tell you, I think it's interesting that we're talking about our story and our kids are writing their story, and we're talking about the story being written and what we've done to fail our children. Because in my opinion, the truth is the reason why we as a community in Black America are in such disarray is because someone stole our story. We're writing stories about hip-hop and athletes and the things that are happening in our lives, but that's not really who we are as a people. It's who we are now. And unlike any other group who has gotten on a boat and come to America, they know their stories. The Jews survived the Holocaust because they know their story. They knew who they were before. They can go back to that afterwards of survival. We don't know our story. Our story was stolen from us. So we continue to write our story, and that's where we fail our children. In raising my sons, I tell them who they are. Not because they're Black, not because they're American, not because they're Christian, but because you belong to me. And because you belong to me, this is how you'll dress. This is how you'll behave. This is what you do. So I commend it that you're getting children to write their story, because we're still writing our story. Our story was stolen for us. People say, well, why are Black people so mad? Well,
okay, I'll tell you what,
KAMRYN,
and I'll tell you what I will commit to, because this is a cinch. If all of us, and all of us are teachers in some way, OMAR and Renee, and of course Andrew and you, KAMRYN, if all of us submit an article at least quarterly, I will publish an e-magazine that can actually be physical if it works out, if we pull in a sponsor. And sponsorship is a very big possibility between the 5 of us or the 6 of us. I think all of us can create action by basically submitting. It doesn't have to be long, it could be short. I don't know if you all have been seeing my newsletters that I've been publishing lately called Relentless Daily, but I will publish another publication that is a free publication that we can put it out there in the sphere in terms of everybody. I think with the 5 of us or the 6 of us sharing the very same periodical on a periodic basis, I think we can affect change.
Absolutely, I'm in.
All right, sign me up.
And some of you already have written short summaries or essays or things that we rant online all the time, but we're not publishing that in any joint effort. So I'm at least committing to putting my time in and putting together an artistic, cohesive project that can be consistent and appealing to the eye, and something that people can share and learn from and grow from, and we can raise awareness together.
I have a book out. I have a book out called 12 Brown Boys, where I wrote 12 short stories.
And then also finish and give us a closing comment, Omar, and then I'll go to each one.
Right, like I was saying, I had written a book called 12 Brown Boys back in 2008 and published that because so many brown boys do not look at themselves as a part of literature, and they end up being teenagers who are not a part of literature, and they end up being grown adults who are not a part of literature, and then everything that's literary they're buying for their girlfriends or their moms or their aunts, and they're not a part of it at all. And so I put that book out, but at the same time we have to give these individuals to accept who they are and participate with who they are, because I couldn't sell that book, and we had about 10,000 copies. Now I can sell 100, 200, 300,000 copies of books to women. When you start talking about selling the stories to men, all of a sudden, well, I can't read it, put it on video, put it on a movie, put it on tape. And so we have to, again, get our children to stop rejecting who they are intellectually and start accepting who we are, so we can get away from a whole lot of the negative trapness that are being trained upon the youth over and over again.
I have a TV show that I've been working with for some years called Fade to Black. And so what I had decided this morning is that I'm going to start going out and just interviewing people that are getting out of church, people that are hanging out on the corners, people that are on their way to work, going to school, whatever, and just do a documentary and put it on Fade to Black like every week. And so this can be a constant reminder and get people to think, because a lot of times we like to say, okay, that's over, until it happens again.
KAMRYN, you want to say something?
I'm in. It's simply that. Thank you for doing this. It was definitely needed. We are just beginning, and I think the conversation went the right way. And, we talk about what's happening right now with Trayvon, and then, we need to handle that, but we also need to handle how we move forward in this country where there's not going to be a post-racial America. So what are we going to do about it?
Beautiful. Andrew, you want to say something?
I would like to simply close out with a reminder to everyone, a reminder that I received when I went scuba diving. And anytime I do something that to me is to some degree life-threatening, it is, I listen carefully to what the instructor says to me. And the guy said, you know what, whatever happens when you go down there in the water, you may find something that terrifies you, you may become afraid. Just remember to breathe. Just remember to breathe. And so, as we move from this space of activism, we're going to get a challenge. The enemy is going to show up and try to tell you why you can't publish this book, why you can't keep going forward, or why you can't go into the school systems. And we simply need to remember to breathe, because as we begin to breathe, we begin to connect with our highest and best. That would enable us to push forward.
Well, folks, I'll end off by saying you all have just completed our first publication, because what I will do is I will take the time to transcribe a lot of the stuff that we said into a cohesive publication that we could all be proud of and that we could all share, and that could therefore launch this initiative between all of us, and we can just move forward, and maybe we'll have these conversations every so often. I know we're all busy. Everybody's doing their own thing, but you've spent a very productive hour with me, with the audience that I serve, and, of course, with the world at large. I'll make sure that we that I put the beginning and the end on this and get this up as soon as possible so that we could share it I thank you all. I thank you, KAMRYN. I thank you, RENEE. Thank you, OMAR TYREE. Thank you, RALL Elder, who chimed in. Did I get everybody? Thank you so much. I appreciate you sharing this time with us.